In this video, I wanted to share some thoughts on how to prepare for a screencasted lesson that you might use with students. Now, I put this in the Camtasia series, so we've been learning about how to use Camtasia, and I'll be giving you thoughts based on that, but you can do this in any time you are screencasting for your students. So the first thing that I always do is I go through and I make a follow-along note packet for my kids. And this is usually derived from previous lecture notes from years before, or just things that I've wanted to change in the past, and I'll provide these as a PDF file to my kids. So what I'm doing as I'm screen recording or as I'm talking is I'll use a Wacom Bamboo tablet, and essentially it's a pen tablet, and what I can do then is write on top of the notes, just like I would be writing on a transparency or a whiteboard. So my kids are seeing me write these notes as I'm talking, just like I would be doing in the classroom. So everything is labeled, everything is diagrammed, and the kids have this exact same file that they are then following along with. I've also seen this done with PowerPoint lectures. Microsoft PowerPoint and the Mac version of PowerPoint both have a pen feature that you can write on top of. So I always provide this just because it's something that I can put out there for my kids to use. I do have some that don't use these. They do it right into their own notebook, but this again helps me provide a framework for what I'm going to be talking about and for what the kids really need to clue in on. And you'll notice that everything that's a blank here is something important. It's a term that they need to know, or it's a term that they need to be able to recall at some point or use at some point in the chapter. The second thing I always consider is where I'm going to put this online. So this is the website for that particular chapter. I always link the PDF file of those notes on the website. So if you don't have an online space, you really should consider finding one or getting one. And then I also link the videos, and I have each video labeled by chapter number. So this is chapter 6 as I teach it, and then video 1, video 2, 3, 4, and so on from there. And that's also on the notes here. So podcast or video number 6.1, this is exactly what they're going to be seeing in that video. So it's all linear, it's all given to them in a very logical sequence, and I provide the framework for them. So those are the first two things I always think about. How am I going to set this up if I were the one writing it down? And then how can I organize this online for my kids to go back and find it if they happen to lose their information, or if they want to go find it for a review or something like that. I also link all of these videos on YouTube using the same numeric structure, and I put these into a playlist, and you've seen that in the YouTube section of this video series. The last thing I do is as I'm recording in Camtasia, I always make sure I have a full screen. I have found that gives me the best screen resolution when I'm putting these videos together. So they can easily see 6.1, 2, 3, or 4, or whatever I'm looking at on these notes. If I'm zooming in on a structure, if I need to zoom in on a particular area of the screen as I'm writing. For Camtasia, I always make sure I have the full screen selected. I'm also thinking about, as I create these, a lot of white space or a lot of blank space for my kids to do extra writing on the side. And I'm always thinking about where I'm going to put my picture. So in this one, we were talking about this diagram. For that picture-in-picture, I've got enough space up here in the top right for my face to go as I'm discussing this. So there's a lot of planning that goes into it, and a lot of spatial, organization that goes into producing these notes and these podcasts. So there's things to be thinking about. And I don't do these for every single lesson I teach. For example, the structure of an atom is very, very complex, and it's hard to diagram and it's hard to draw, so I didn't do a video for it. We used a project-based learning, and they made models of atoms instead. So if you are making a screen recording or if you're making a screencast, think about these things. Again, first, how am I going to organize this information for students to consume it? How am I going to provide that information? How are they going to get to it? So do I have a website or a YouTube channel? And then third, how can I best record it in order for these things to be easily accessible and viewable for the kids? And if you walk through that for each lesson you're preparing, the screen recording process will be much smoother.